Oh, hi everyone. How you doing? Good, good. Excellent. I'm Alicia. I'm an engineering manager at Instant.io. I've been at EM there for about 8 months now, and since I joined, we have doubled the team. We went from 1 team to 4 teams within 8 months. We ship fast, we ship often, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to drive pace in your team, aka getting shit done quickly. So let's talk a little bit about what pace is. Pace is value delivered at speed. It's fast delivery of a good and reliable service. It's what we all dream of when we're pushing for better delivery. Ultimately, delivery is a key part of business growth. The sooner you can ship, the sooner you can prove value to your customers and to the business. Ideally, you don't want to be waiting 6 months to see if the direction you're taking your product in is the right one. When we talk about delivery, we also talk a lot about data, about our velocity, our stability. I'm not going to talk about any of that today. I think data can be really powerful, but when you're in a startup and things are moving at 100 miles an hour, that data can become inconsistent and unreliable. Productivity metrics can also distract people. They start to become more concerned with the numbers and the actual value that they're giving to customers. I honestly don't care how many commits my engineers merge. What I do care about is that the value that they're given and the impact that they're having. And that's not to say that data isn't useful and can't tell us an interesting story about the way that we're working and the things that we're doing. It absolutely can. It's just something that I care a little less about. So what will I be talking about today? I'm going to be talking about ways that you can unlock pace in your teams without metrics. That includes setting some defaults with your teams, optimizing your projects for fast delivery, encouraging pace at an individual level. I'm also going to cover a little bit about what could go wrong, and also knowing your boundaries, understanding your limits. Set some defaults with your teams. It's really great to have a baseline of expectations with your teams. First of all, if you care about pace and you care about fast delivery, put it at the heart of your team. What you want is you want your team to be really dialed in by what you as an organization mean by pace. What are the things you're willing to compromise on? What are the things that you're not willing to take risks on? Discuss them with your team. Put pace at the center of what you're doing. Give lots of room for autonomy. We talk about autonomy a lot as managers in engineering, but you want to really give lots of room for autonomy. You want your engineers to be running projects. You want them to be making technical decisions, hard technical decisions. You want them to be making product decisions as well. Give them the room to run 100 miles an hour without any blockers, without having to come to you to ask for permission or ask if this is the right thing to do. Now, you as a manager should be there to challenge your team, to make sure that they're thinking about the right things and thinking about things in the right way. But you want to make sure that they're able to move really quickly. Be transparent by default. With all this autonomy going on, you're going to want to have good visibility on what's happening with your team. Have public Slack channels. If there's a discussion happening there, you've got good visibility on it. Have regular project updates so you know where you are in your projects. If something's a little bit off track, you can jump in, have a chat with the team, and figure it out. Create some hype. Energize your team. Get them excited about what they're working on and the value that is going to give the customers and the impact that they're going to have. Cool. So our teams know what's happening. We've got a good expectations. Expectations have been set. But you want to optimize your projects to allow for that speed. Keep your projects short, really short, inappropriately short. Forget about months. You don't want to be working in months. You want to be thinking about weeks. At Instant.io, our projects tend to take a week or 2. Sometimes we do have bigger projects. And when we do have bigger projects that maybe last a month or 2, we try to break that up and get value to the customer as early as we can, whether that's through a design partner or through A/B testing. The idea is to get that value out as soon as you can so you know you're working on the right thing. Keep things simple. You want to be reaching for the simplest implementation of what you're building. You want the boring technology, the tried and tested solution so you can run at it 100 miles an hour. If something does break, then it's okay. Documentation is online, and it's really easy to find some information on what it is that's gone wrong. I think we've all been there when we're using some fancy new technology. You go on Stack Overflow, and there's nothing there. That's not what you want. You want to be able to quickly recover when things go wrong. So keep your implementations simple. Keep them boring. Do the hard bits first. You really want to tackle those unknowns in your project as early on as possible. Get rid of all that complexity. What you don't want at the end of your project is a long tail of work of, I don't know, maybe another day. I don't know, maybe another day. Get rid of that really early on in the project. So the last things that you have to do are simple, and you can just smash right through them. Work done should trump work started. We've all been there. You're on a project. It's just closing up. A few more little bits left to do. And you're like, oh, maybe I should go and scope that project over there. Spend a little bit of time. Don't do it. Have a look at your project. What's left to do? Can any more people be put on this project to help us land this really strong so you as a team can start to focus on the next thing? And lastly, regroup when something changes. Things change constantly, all of the time. Somebody might be off sick. There might be more complexity than you initially thought there would be. When that does happen, regroup really early. Sit down with your team. Have a think about your plan. Have a think about your scope. Is there anything that we can cut to make sure we still deliver this on time? If there's not, that's okay. Just reset those expectations. Set a new deadline. Communicate with those who need to know that things have changed a little bit. This helps to relieve a lot of pressure. All right, we've set some nice defaults with our team. Our projects are optimized for lightning speed. What about your individuals on your team? How can you encourage them to drive pace? First of all, you're going to want to help them find their superpower. Now, pace isn't just typing really fast on the keyboard. Pace can be presented in many different ways. I have some engineers on my team who like to take a lot of time planning, writing pseudocode, so when it does come to the actual implementation, they can run right through. There's different ways to contribute to the pace of your team. Help your engineers find that superpower. Encourage it. Let them lean into it. Be laser focused on value. You want your engineers to be focused on the value that they're delivering, the value to your customers and to the business. We don't write code and deliver work for the fun of it. We're trying to make some money. You want to be really focused on the value and the impact that you're giving to your customers. We've all heard of the 80-20 rule, 80% focus on the project, on the value that you're delivering, and 20% on other stuff, whether that's career development or, I don't know, maybe you're prepping for a LeadDev talk. Who knows? Beat your deadlines. So there's so many times where I've finished something a little bit early and I'm like, ooh, how can I make this a little bit more robust? How can I have a little bit more confidence in this implementation that I have? Start to think of all the other extra things that I could do, because I've got a couple more days left. Don't do that. Bring that back to your team. Say, hey team, I finished this thing early. I think I could make it a little bit better. Is that the right place for me to be spending my time? Maybe it is, but maybe it's not. And maybe somebody else is struggling on something on the project that you can help with. Go back to your team. If you beat your deadline, don't fill that time. Have a think about what's the next piece of value that I can add. Don't stay stuck. As engineers, we're problem solvers. We get stuck on something and we want to dig. We want to find out what's gone wrong. And honestly, it's a great way to learn. So it's not something that I necessarily am telling you to take away from your engineers. Absolutely not. The idea is that you don't stay stuck. Be stuck. 30 minutes, 60 minutes, that's a good enough time. You're figuring out what's happening. You might have some idea. It's a good time to go and ask somebody with a little bit more experience, a little bit more tenure, to get you unstuck. It doesn't stop you from learning. Pair with them. Work through the problem with them together. But don't stay stuck. And lastly, pain is expected, and it's okay. we're moving fast here. We're shipping quickly. We may be cutting a few little corners here and there. Things are going to break. Things break anyway. It's OK. Don't worry about it. If something breaks, we'll fix it. Sorry for whoever's on call, but it will get fixed. Don't worry about it. Pain is expected. Be OK with that. And you want your engineers to be really comfortable with that. Cool. Speaking of pain, what could go wrong? This all sounds wonderful, Alicia, but what are some of the risks that we should be looking out for as engineering managers when we're really focusing on driving pace within our teams? Pressure. This is probably the biggest one. You don't want to be putting too much undue pressure on your engineers. I certainly don't want a bunch of stressed out engineers moaning at me all day. I don't know about you lot. But what you want to do is relieve pressure. Deadlines are important, but for the most part, they're arbitrary. Unless you have some sort of existing external commitment to a customer or something like that, they're dates that we've decided we could maybe do something. It's OK if it shifts a little bit. To relieve that pressure, you should have different tools in your arsenal to be able to relieve that pressure from your engineers. For us, it's regroups. If something does go wrong, people start to feel a little bit stressed out. Oh, we're not going to do it on time. It's fine. Take a moment. Regroup with your team. Reset those expectations. Relieve some of that pressure. Poor code quality. This is something we definitely don't want. So while we do want to move quickly, we don't want to compromise on quality. We want things to be performant and resilient and readable. We want to make sure we've accounted for the main use cases. It's really important that code quality stays to a high standard. We want to be making active trade-offs, not implicit ones. Unhealthy competitiveness. When you're pushing for pace, you're pushing for your engineers to be fast, it can breed an unhealthy competitiveness. Someone might start to look at somebody else and be like, they're not as fast as me. This is where your superpower comes into play. Not everybody is fast in the same way. Your team needs to understand that. You need to encourage your team to help other engineers find their superpower, see how they can be fast and how they can contribute to the pace of your team. And you want to focus on value, not speed. So the anti-pattern here is that you focus on speed rather than value. So it's really easy to get into a mindset of doing things quickly. You start to cut some dirty corners, and that's bad. We don't want that. You want to make sure that you're actually getting a return on your investment. Is your pace real value delivered at speed, or is it superficial? And that leads really nicely into a false sense of speed. Are you going fast because your projects are optimized well, because you've got really nice patterns to help you move quickly? Or are you going fast because your engineers are feeling stressed out and working overtime? Look out for a false sense of speed and make sure you understand where your pace is coming from. Lastly, you're going to want to understand your limits. What is it that you're willing to be flexible with? What do you care a little bit less about? At Incident.io, we care a little bit less about pixel perfection. We want good UX, sure. We want things to be easy to navigate. But if a margin's off by a few pixels, we're not going to cry about it. On the flip side, what are you not willing to take a risk on? What are those things that there's absolutely no way in hell you're going to budge on? For us, it's security. We deal with incidents. We deal with companies' worst moments. We want to protect that information and protect that data. For us, security is not something we're willing to take a risk on. What are those things for you and your team? And what do you expect from your team? I've spoken about this a little bit throughout the talk, but what are those expectations? Do you want them to work late? Do you want them to do whatever it takes to get the job done, no matter what? Be really clear on these things. For us, we don't expect people to work late. Sometimes I might tell my engineers off if they are working too late. You want folks to be really transparent, to look after themselves and others. Set those expectations so your team understand what it is you need from them. Once you do figure all of that out, write it down. Talk about it. Talk about it all the time. Talk about it with your team. Talk about it publicly. You want to embed this type of culture into your teams. All right, let's have a little bit of a recap. If you're going to take anything away from my talk today, these are the things. I hope you all got your pens out. Get them on board. Get your team on board. Set those expectations. Set those defaults so your team really understand what it is that you want from them. Optimize your projects. Keep them inappropriately short. Get that value out to customers as soon as you can. Encourage individual pace. Help the members of your team find that power, find that individual pace superpower. And understand your limits. What are you not willing to compromise on? What are you happy to take a little bit of a risk on? That's all today. Thanks for listening. Come and say hi. I'll be around.